Hi everyone, welcome to Dear BAMf, the show for PR and marketing pros like you, hosted by Beck Bamberger of BAM. BAM is a communications agency that believes stories move the world. We move stories forward for technology-driven brands that challenge, change, and create entire industries. Today, on the Dear BAMf podcast, we're talking with Clare Bennett, Marketing Director at Dcode, where she connects the technology industry and government to drive commercial innovation. She has 8 years experience spanning marketing, communications, and editorial. Let's dive in.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Dear BAMf, the podcast for PR marketing people. I'm Beck Bamberger, your host here, CEO of BAM. We work with a bunch of venture-backed startups that are always doing all types of things. Today, we are so lucky to have Clare Bennett from Dcode, where she is, as you guys just kind of heard on the backdrop of the opening, is the marketing director there for almost 2 years, Clare. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm so pumped. I, as you mentioned, have been at Dcode for almost 2 years. And for the 2 years before that, had been wanting to work there. So it's been a good...
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's always so good when you're like, oh, I wish to work there. Maybe one day I can. Oh, good.
Totally.
I love that. Well, why don't you give us the 60 seconds on what Dcode is about for those who don't know?
For sure. So Dcode is a startup based in DC with a pretty rad all-female C-suite, I might add. Definitely was part of the draw for me in those years of pining. And yes, the company's whole shtick is about bringing better emerging tech from the private sector into federal agencies so that the government can better serve Americans. So something that, seems worthwhile, super important. It's a passionate group at Dcode for sure.
That's great. Oh, and that connectivity, I imagine, is so needed because how do you even sell anything to the government?
It's hard. It's really hard.
Even though they're one of the biggest spenders.
Right. Exactly. It's a huge market opportunity for tech companies, and it's just really hard to get in the door. But once you're in, it really is a really great opportunity for both sides, for everyone involved, really.
Yeah. Oh, good. This is so exciting. I'm like on the website right now. I love the bright green. Speaking of, in this last 12 months, pretty much half of your career there.
Right.
What are you most proud of in accomplishing?
So, at Dcode, I would say in the past 12 months, I would say that all the times that we've, switched gears and gotten creative. My favorite example being, I talked the team into doing a Cameo video. Cameo, the company that'll do the celebrity videos.
Also venture backed. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. Exactly. So we wanted to kind of do something a little different for holiday, this year with our customers working from home and scattered everywhere. So we sent it to our portfolio of tech companies for the holidays. And it was the actor who plays the character Russ Hanneman in the HBO show Silicon Valley.
Oh, perfect.
So he stayed in character for the video and it had people in tears. We were laughing so hard.
So what did he do? Like, how did he come off as?
Oh my gosh. I can certainly send it to you. It's
oh my gosh, send it to me.
Funny. He, it's just from our team and he comes on singing A Christmas Carol. He's got this absurd mug and he just brought the character's energy and hilarity and people were loving it. So that was definitely like a fun moment to be proud of at the end of the year, at the end of a weird year. But
oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I think the other stuff that stands out from the year was I was really excited about launching Dcode Capital, our investment network. Mm-hmm. And so that is, a network of angel investors and like former government tech all-stars and folks who really want to invest in tech companies that can move our country forward. So, there's this, it's really, in the first year has had some great success, has invested in alongside some top tier VCs in really cool companies, Hyperscience being the first one that comes to mind, top of mind. And so, getting to launch that and announce it and see it grow, it was definitely a highlight.
Oh, cool. Ah, that's so great. We have quite a few questions, Ms. Clare. Great job on everything you've done over there. I was just looking at Cameo, which, my goodness, you could definitely book all types of people.
It's
in case you
really
haven't heard of that. They almost raised like $60 million. So I don't know what they're doing with all that money, but my God, there's quite a lot for maybe it's to woo this. I don't know. I guess you have to, that's kind of interesting to think about, by the way. Like, I guess you got to market towards
both
B-lister, C-lister-ish, but also sports people, TV personalities. Like, how do you do the marketing budget for that or the marketing techniques?
We've definitely done
agents.
Yeah, exactly. We've done some good, like, throwback baseball stars from the 90s for a friend just became a dad. Let's send him a message.
Good application.
Yeah, it's been really funny.
Why not? I love that.
Good group gift.
Good group gift. Okay. We got some questions here today, Ms. Clare. Here we go with the first one. Dear BAMf, I love the startup I'm at. I'm the head of comms and I'm constantly challenged. The other good news is my startup is headed to an IPO, most likely, given the recent valuation we just got, plus our CEO's constant sharing of this being the goal. The bad news is, or potential bad news, the C-suite in place is a bit unpolished. I'm getting sweaty just thinking of having our CTO or CEO on a national business TV appearance, for instance. I have artfully avoided unscripted media ops like live TV, but as we get closer to this goal, I want to mitigate surprises that could make us look unpolished or worst, foolish to Wall Street. Obviously, I can just tell them that all the media training that we've done so far is a must, but we've done that with limited quote unquote success. What could I pivot my message to now if you've ever dealt with this before?
Yeah, great question. I understood this as my C-suite is doing big things, but isn't the most media trained and might not be super receptive to the media training. Is that how you heard that?
Yeah. Or that maybe you're also not getting much success from it, but
the results.
We don't have enough context here.
That's
so
fair.
But go ahead.
Well, I guess, so I'll rattle off some ideas.
Please.
So in the vein of how do you convince C-suite to take the preparation seriously, but also I think some of this does apply to hopefully getting some better results. I think first comes to mind is hold up the mirror. Nothing gets to people more than seeing or hearing a recording of themselves presenting, even if it's like sneakily done in meetings and like making them watch it after. That has definitely, I've only had to do that once and I would say it worked. It definitely, the message was loud and clear. And then I think kind of similar-ish is you could scare them, right? You can send examples of execs who have bombed, maybe make it a little lighthearted, but also, make sure that everyone is clear about what's on the line. Mm-hmm. You can also, another fun idea would be, it depends on your culture and C-suite vibes for sure, but driving some competition, framing it maybe like a leaderboard of whoever commits the most or is showing the best prep will be the ones to speak kind of regardless.
Yeah, that's a good technique.
Yeah,
some egos at play there. Yeah.
Right. And still, hopefully keeping it not overly painfully critical where people, it can be a sensitive thing to prep for media appearances like that. And certainly keeping it simple, right? Making media training just about, okay, what is the one home-based message? Focusing and then just practicing bringing responses back to that one line over and over again. And, there are so many people do this, right? And there are really obvious examples. There are some sneakier, like more elegant examples, people who just do this really well. So certainly, watch and learn from. And then, but also, could be also a moment to inspire your team, right? Illustrate what they have to gain here if they nail this and just, be booking time on their calendars to practice out loud multiple times before showtime.
Mm-hmm. I love all of that. And I'd say so critically to this, it's just the constant practice, practice. So if you've already done we've done 6 media trainings. Okay. you can graduate before you're on CNBC to little podcasts, little safer things that could get this person, your CEO or CTO, speaking live or speaking candidly, unscripted on something like this, like a simple podcast that has you able to grade, or let's just say provide feedback post the interview. There's even podcasts a lot now that have the video component too. So that's an easy way to kind of get the video component. So you can say, okay, your body language or how you're holding your head or whatever other things. So you might want to graduate to that as the next step, because unfortunately for this, there's no escaping this. If you're headed on this pathway, you will be on those national platforms. And so unless the board is going to take out any of these people, this is the material you have. This is the talent you have. So practice, practice, practice. That's frankly the only way to get better at this point.
That's such a great point. And knowing that you're live is also a really helpful element. That's hard to. That's
a great other area for practice. I forgot webinars, because then you get the video component. It is live and you can watch it, and it's a safe, easier thing.
Totally.
It's not going to be on national broadcast. So yeah, webinars. Okay. Webinars and low hanging, low risk media fruit, such as podcasts, small podcasts, not how I built this level, small podcasts. See if you can do that. Although how I built this is very edited, all that good stuff. But
yeah,
anyway.
Plus I feel really big time on this right now. So not sure.
Thanks, Claire. It is big time to comms marketing people.
Thank
damn
you.
Straight. Straight.
That's
why
me.
you're here.
That's us.
That's right. Yep. Okay. Next question. Dear BAMf, my security startup deals with huge, massive government contracts, such as with the Army and the Pentagon, which is incredible. The issue with this, from a comms perspective, is that we're not allowed to mention these names, of course. What are some creative ways I can phrase our case studies and sales decks to clearly convey the caliber of clients we have without being in breach of our contract with our clients? This, I feel, is a typical situation we see. Go ahead, Claire.
I've really felt this question.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
It is certainly a part of my experience working with government agencies at Dcode, and it's understandable that some work is just going to be, too sensitive to share. We have a bunch of example case studies and pitch decks to answer this very question for the tech companies in our acceleration platform or acceleration program, and they are on our new platform, Nexus, which is where our tech companies connect with each other and with our government community as they work on scaling in the federal market. But the short answer, I think, is just, describing that sensitive work in general terms. Like, we are working on a blank system for a defense customer, and, people understand the nature of that work. It won't be super surprising, and you'll still be able to speak to, as much as the contract allows in those more general terms. And it certainly does vary contract to contract.
I'd also say federal agency is a great euphemism to use.
Right.
Everyone can typically read through the lines of that because there's limited numbers of such. And you don't have to say like security federal agency because you're like, well, there's like 3. But, federal agencies specifically. How do you guys word it actually? Yeah, defense agency.
Right.
I'm looking at your website, like how you guys specifically talk about that.
Right. And so for us, a lot of the
government. Yeah.
Right. And a lot of the, logos that we're able to use, testimonials that we're able to use are from either contracts that are not as sensitive or folks that engage with Dcode through the tech side, through the accelerator. So these are folks from, civilian and defense and intelligence agencies that come to Dcode, and they're meeting with those tech companies one-on-one. So, we're able to represent, like that involvement, but then we're not necessarily able to talk about some of the more sensitive, secure stuff.
Gotcha. You got some good logos on your website, by the way. Air Force, Department of Defense. So I hope whoever who's listening here knows that it can be done. You can get these on the website. But if you're in a deep security thing, probably not, but that's okay.
Right.
Federal agency, the way to go.
Yep.
Cool. Next question, Miss Claire. Here we go. Dear BAMf, are surveys dead? I'm sensing media is getting fatigued by them, but this is just a hunch I have as the internal head of comms at my real estate startup. I used to execute surveys done by our own customers, get 1,000 responses, and knock it out of the park with media interest. What should I be rethinking as I look at survey design these days? Oh, I have a lot of thoughts on this. Go ahead.
Yeah, I definitely would welcome your thoughts. Admittedly biased here. I used to work at Morning Consult. It is a survey research tech company, and they are awesome. They do really, really cool work, and I loved my time there. And so I actually started following Morning Consult in 2016 when polling was such a huge story in itself, and learned a ton more about survey research then and when I joined. And I think that I think I'm sensing a similar fatigue and almost skepticism.
Yeah, agreed.
And this, the reason I'm hesitant on my response to this one is because it's not really accessible. So, because my thought is, I was seeing really major brands have awesome success with the survey research that they were conducting with Morning Consult, but understanding that, that wouldn't be something that I could even do, right? At a startup when you think of the scope of that kind of project and cost. But yeah, what do you think?
Same thing. I feel for this person. When you're getting it from your own customers, there's already a question mark. It's like, oh, you already have. Now, that works if you have a very specific kind of customer. So I'll give you an example. One of our clients works, frankly, with thousands upon thousands. I think it's actually over 1 million at this point. Teachers. Amazing. So that's a pretty specific group. And so if they send out a survey, they get 2,000 responses. Awesome. Here's what teachers thinks about X. However, if you're in a super B2B brand, maybe like the previous question, you only have 17 clients because they're federal agencies. You can't
and they
say,
can't talk about it.
Yeah, I know our survey of 4 says that's just not going to go anywhere. So what we've seen increasingly with surveys is executed with a third party, a reputable third party like a Harris poll, which then gives some specificity about the quality of the responders, of the responses, and takes you, the company, out of it a little bit. Because there's a lot of speculation, at least when we see this from media, of a company that sells, let's say, milkshakes. Oh, we did a survey and 97% of people love milkshakes. It's like, okay, it's that type of thing. Is your survey just saying that, oh yeah, your industry is important, your type of company is valuable to HR, the kind of the self-serving survey, which then clearly only is enthusiastically targeted towards your customers, that type of thing. So the best thing here that we've seen, and this now this is another cost, is to consider a third party that you can pay and be in tandem with, and which you could get the results from. Because you got to, and the other part is, and you got to get a certain number of responses. You can't just say, oh, here's 17. You need to get over 1,000 for sure. We're seeing journalists want a couple thousand now increasingly in order to have any legs of it being pushed out to media. Otherwise, if there's not a media angle here, so this person, when they were talking about, she says, he says, knock it out of the park with media interest, but what should I be rethinking as I look at survey design these days? So perhaps this person isn't necessarily only thinking about the media lens. If this is just for your customers and it's for your customer support team, knock yourself out. You could survey your people all the time, but if it is in the media lens and you wish to get coverage from the results, consider using that third party, which unfortunately is going to be a cost from your line item budget.
Totally.
That's really a thing.
Yeah. So I was thinking about whether, and I, have not been paying attention to this as a trend at all, but I've certainly seen, if you are a tech product startup or have any sort of software that you're selling and you're able to pull statistically significant data on that usage, sometimes the what my customers are doing and like the behavior is more interesting than what they're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yes. It's so interesting how people answer survey questions and how that compares to their reality at times. So I think that, just something to consider if you've got a platform that can kind of maybe augment or replace that more qualitative research.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, that's a good way to look at it. I like that suggestion. What could you otherwise observe from people and users? Yeah. Ooh, even better, because there's a lot of bias in surveys, of course, of like, oh yeah, I believe this, but they don't act that way.
Right.
And then it's the kind of thing of, this is why surveys have screwed up a lot of political polls and stuff for exactly this reason, because people's stated beliefs to a survey somewhere online is very different sometimes than actual behavior.
Right.
So depending on what you got, maybe there's some kind of actual behavioral qualitative research that you can look at or do.
Right. Absolutely.
That'd be kind of more interesting, I think. That'd be interesting.
It does make me want to immediately ask the survey research team at Morning Consult. I'm like, what would you all do? What would you say?
Claire. I would totally, this is some follow-up homework for you. What would they say?
I'll definitely take it.
Report back to us. Yeah. Well, Claire, those are the questions for today.
Excellent.
We've solved what we can today. Of course, there's always questions. Thank you for being on, Claire. So appreciate it.
Thank you.
Report back to us on those surveys. I want to know now from them.
I will. I absolutely will. And super appreciate the opportunity to chat. And thanks for having me.
Love it.
Thanks for listening to Dear BAMf, the advice podcast for PR and marketing pros like you. Our show was created by BAM, a PR and marketing agency headquartered in San Diego and New York City. The music you're enjoying today was composed by Tiffany Dizon, produced by Daniel Kessner, and played by San Diego Symphony's Art of Alon. If you have a tough PR and marketing question you'd like us to answer, write to us at bamtheagency.com/Dear BAMf. Don't forget the F. If you'd like to get notified of our latest episodes, subscribe to us wherever you listen to podcasts and review us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.